You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. The Chief was always there. In the living room is where I remember him most in our house on Poplar Avenue in San Bruno, California. I think he was there before I was born, but I'm not sure. He's always been there as far back as my memory goes. Standing stoically, looking off into the horizon. Behind him, staring straight at you whenever you entered the room, was the medicine man. He's been there just as long as the Chief, but it is always the Chief that most people saw. The Chief watched over me as I grew up. Watched over my dad and I as we camped in the living room. Watched over dinner parties with friends and slumber parties with friends and birthday parties with friends. The Chief was there when I opened up many a Christmas present. When I was in 4th grade, we moved from San Bruno, 2 towns over, to Burlingame, California. The Chief came with us, but when we arrived at the new house, the Chief didn't seem to fit in anywhere. He didn't fit the style of the new house. So instead of the living room, the Chief was put under the house, in the unfinished storage space that was uninsulated, full of spiderwebs, and filled with rocky gravel, accessible only by a door behind the built-in bar in the family room. I grew up. Junior high, high school, college. I spent a year at home after graduation, and the Chief was there, still in the storage space. I would see the Chief now and then as I crawled through the storage space to get at the Christmas decorations that were stored there, or to store away a box of items from my youth, or retrieve a stored box of items from my youth to sell or donate or toss out. I would see the Chief would see me. I'd nod. He'd stare off into the horizon. Decades passed. I moved away from home, got jobs, lost jobs, became a comedian, a podcaster, a puppeteer, got married. The Chief stayed in the storage space. One day, my parents announced they were going to sell the house. I went up to help them pack, and things were brought up from the storage space. The Chief saw the sun again for the first time in decades. There would be no room for the Chief in my parents' new house. I asked if the Chief could come with me. They agreed. The Chief journeyed to Southern California. He was now in my studio office. He watched podcast recordings and puppetry shoots. He watched over the office when I wasn't there, but every morning when I came in, I'd nod to the Chief, and he'd stare off into the horizon. I don't have that office anymore. I now have a home studio where I'm speaking these lines. But just behind me is the Chief, watching, staring off into the horizon. I don't know where the Chief came from. The only clue is Wyman, but that only turns up more pictures of the Chief. But I'm glad the Chief is here, watching, and I hope he continues to watch long after I'm gone. To watch a video of the recording of this episode of the GrantCast, or for exclusive bonus content for this episode, become a patron of Saturday Morning Media over at patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media. And thank you for your support. This episode of the GrantCast is copyright 2021 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Baciocco, executive producer, all rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com. You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.